until I was 36 years old. I was shoving that anxiety down so deep that people were not aware of that was what I was struggling with. And because I had shoved that anxiety down for so long, it led to depression and I was suicidal. And I was actually, it was when I called a mental health hotline, it was the first time I had heard the words, "You are anxious." And it wasn't a, "Don't worry about it, it's not that big a deal." And I started crying because it was so good to have an answer.
Hi, friends, and welcome to Echoes of Impact. I'm Briana.
And I'm Cherise. We're so glad you're here with us.
We created this space because we have needed conversations like this ourselves. So here we're going to explore life's journeys and the ways that we see God show up every day.
So thanks for being here. Let's lean in and see what God has for us today.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Echoes of Impact. I'm Briana.
And I'm Cherise.
And as always, we're so happy to be here. It is my personal favorite day of the week. I love having these conversations. As we record here, we are just like a week away from 2 years of doing this podcast. And we are just so blessed by this. Yes. And over 100 episodes at this point. And I feel like I have had so many takeaways from every episode, like even though we're on here recording so that other women can listen and learn, like we have learned so much and met so many amazing people. So it's so fun. Today we are joined by Nichole Suvar and can't wait to have this conversation. If you're listening, are you somebody that deals with some anxiety, or are you somebody that maybe feels overwhelmed by life? I don't know many women who wouldn't say yes to both of those things.
Describing me and everybody I know.
Yeah. In fact, Cherise, you had a clip recently about your 3 a.m. thoughts. And I think there were a lot of women that were like, oh, yeah, me too. That we worry even when we're trying to sleep. We wake up just to like think about stuff and we can feel overwhelmed in those anxieties. And I think especially as a believer, like it can feel tricky because I think we're taught, right? Taught not to fear, taught not to be anxious about anything. And even though there is truth there, but there's also like real life and how God meets us in that space too. So today we are joined by Nichole Suvar, and just a little intro to her. She is an intentional living strategist who comes alongside overwhelmed women to introduce them to God's design for mental wellness. She is an author of 5 books, and she has a book coming out early June that you guys will be able to pre-order when this episode goes live. It is called I Don't Have to Hold It All Together, Cultivating the Peace of Eden When Feeling Overwhelmed. Wow, can't wait to hear more about that. When she is not writing or coaching, you can find her trying in vain, as she says, to keep the cupboard stocked for her always hungry teens. Me too. Hiking a new trail, soaking in the quiet with her husband, Paul, or savoring cheddar cheese with pickles like it's a gourmet meal. She appreciates deep conversations over small talk any day. So, yep, you're in the right place. And especially if there's good coffee or Earl Grey involved. Nichole, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, before we kind of dig into just who you are and about your new book about to come out, we start every episode the same. What does living out your purpose mean to you?
Yes. Okay. So that is a great question because I feel like so much of us flounder with like what purpose is. So I'm glad that you have this podcast to help people kind of maybe find that more. So,
Yeah.
So for myself, purpose, and even like I kind of talk about in my book, is that understanding what my gifts are that God has given me and then following after those. And so living out my purpose is using the gifts that God has put in me when he created who I am and living those out so that they point others to him for his glory and not mine.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I love the love God, love others flow that that was just beautifully said. Thank you, Nichole.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about our conversation today. I just was hoping that you could take a minute just to tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and what brought you to be here with us today.
Yeah. So I grew up in a home that loved Jesus. And so I have known and loved Jesus my whole life. But living alongside of that was anxiety. I didn't know
Mm,
it as a child, but they were panic attacks. I lived
mm,
with anxiety. I didn't have the words for it. And
yeah.
really in the 90s, a lot of people didn't have the words for it.
Yeah.
So I'm growing up hearing about Jesus, loving Jesus, but also having this anxiety and worry that hung over me all the time. And it was when I was 14 years old, I gave my life to Jesus. And I thought some of that would go away, and it did not. In fact,
Mm,
it got worse.
mm,
And it was hard for me to then, before then, I would be able to tell my parents or a teacher something. And it was always, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. I always had to try to shut it off. And then
yeah.
when I became a Christian, and I still had those same feelings, if not worse, because as you get older, you know, big people, big problems.
Mm,
I would
mhm,
try to talk about it. And instead of don't worry about it, it's not that big a deal, it was, have you prayed about it? Are you reading your Bible?
yeah.
Don't worry about it because God says not to. And I heard
Mm,
enough of that and I could not get it under control. So I stopped talking about it. And
mm,
so until I was 36 years old, I was shoving that anxiety down so deep that people were not aware of that was what I was struggling with. And because I had shoved that anxiety down for so long, it led to depression and I was suicidal.
mm.
And I was
Oh
actually, it was
gosh.
when I called a mental health hotline, was the first time I had heard the words, you are anxious. And it wasn't a, don't worry about it, it's not the big a deal. And that
Mm,
opened up a whole world for me and a trajectory. It definitely changed my life. And the fact that I went and saw a doctor and I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and major
mm,
depression, and I had medication and I saw a counselor and so many things to finally get some answers for what was going on.
Mm.
mm,
That learning through that, and then this whole time I'm a writer. I'm writing about it. I share about it online for the first time. Like, I am anxious and this is what it feels like. And so many people related with that. And I
mhm,
realized, like, this is something I need to keep sharing because other people need to know, not only those who also are feeling it, so they get that Me Too moment of like, I'm not the only one, but also those
mhm,
other people
yeah.
out there who don't experience anxiety at this level, helping them understand that you can love Jesus and fully trust him and also feel this way, and helping
Mm,
people reconcile that. And so that has kind of led into the
mm.
ministry and where I'm at
That's
today.
lovely.
Wow. We have a mutual friend who is very wise, and she is a pastor, and she
Mhm.
often talks about how we need to, in the church, specifically in Christianity, like marry this practical and Jesus. And like, yes, all we need is Jesus, like, how the saying goes. And it's like, yes. And there's wisdom. And he like created people with gifts and doctors and psychiatrists and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, it's not denying our faith or like
Mhm.
denying Jesus to like walk practical out alongside spiritual,
Mhm.
that
Mm.
it's really kind of marrying both that help us to heal and be able to maybe move forward. So I'm curious for you, because you mentioned being able to then get some tools to deal with anxiety and getting in counseling. Did you have any of those practical tools prior, or was it really just like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, until you were in your 30s, was it like, there's another way?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say until I got a diagnosis, started seeing a counselor, the tools I had were, I just need to keep praying. I just need to read my Bible more. I just have to try harder.
Mm-hmm.
Try harder.
That was mostly what it was, because I thought everybody lived with this level of anxiety. I just thought they were
Mm.
handling it better.
Mm.
So I just felt like a failure over and over when I could not shut this off.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my tool. Try harder.
Take
It
me
wasn't a good one.
no. Take me into that moment where you said you were on the phone with the hotline.
Mhm.
I can't imagine just the courage it took to call the hotline, especially when you had been silenced so often when you talked
Mhm.
about your anxieties. So amazing, first of all. But second of all, you're on the phone and you hear her say, you're anxious. At that point, what did it feel like to come into the knowledge of what was actually going on? Like, did it
Yeah.
feel like freedom or did it feel like revelation?
Like have it named.
I think a little bit of both, because
Yeah.
for the first time, having someone say, don't worry about it, but instead, like, actually, this is what you're experiencing. Like, it sounds like you have anxiety. And there was such relief with that, because I realized, like, oh, so and she didn't follow up with like, and this is how you need to stop doing it. It wasn't it was like, you have this anxiety, but this is what we need to now. Here's the next steps so that you can live better because you have this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I started crying because it was so good to have an answer. It's like,
Like validating.
yes. I think of
Yeah.
like, I have
Validated.
some other autoimmune things, and like, I'm sure there's other people out there who can understand this. If like you have something going on in your body and you go to so many doctors and they're always like, I don't know, we can't find it. You're fine. And you're like, I don't feel fine. And so when you go
Yeah.
somewhere where finally you have an answer, like there's just, even if it's not like a great thing, to have an answer to like then move forward with is
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
It's even just like saying you're not crazy. You're right.
Yes.
There is something wrong going on.
Yep.
Because it can probably feel a lot like being gaslit. If you're like, no, really, like do have a problem, really. And everyone's like, you're fine.
Yes.
You know?
And I have found even afterwards, talking with my counselor, when I maybe will have like a string of good days where I don't feel anxious, that I'll even be like, I don't know, maybe I just imagined all of it. Like I'm actually gaslighting myself. Like my counselor has to be like, okay, remember how you were feeling. So I feel like it's just been ingrained so much that like, surely it's not that big a deal. Just calm down. It's not that big a deal.
Can you maybe for like our listeners and everything, tell us a little bit more about how anxiety feels for you? How does that like actually play out, whether that's in your mind or your actions, or
Yeah. So
especially maybe when it was worse?
yes,
Yeah.
before I knew what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So generalized anxiety disorder, part of it plays out in the fact that it's generalized, and that you can't pinpoint like, I feel anxious because of this test that's coming up, or because of my
Yeah.
child's whatever. Like you just feel like this sense of dread. I said it was like a cat with claws that was just kind of like hanging on your back. And
Ooh.
yeah, like it just was always there, and I just could not remove it. So there's always and I would just wake up in the morning and just kind of feel like, oh, like my body was like your body's suddenly on alert. Like there's something going to happen. Like there's always this feeling of fear, but you have
like
nothing.
the moment before a jump scare in a movie.
Yeah, you have nothing to point to. Yeah. And so not only do you, with that dread, then you have like your whole body just kind of is a little more tense. And so you'll have headaches, you'll have really tight shoulders and neck. And so you'll have a lot of shoulder and neck pain. Sometimes your heart rate just always is at an elevated level. It's not at its nice little 60 or 55 or whatever is supposed to be normal for resting. Generally, like my resting heart rate is like 75. It just always is. And like sometimes your breathing isn't always super deep. You kind of are breathing a lot shallower, so you're not getting a lot of oxygen in. And so it doesn't take much for something that would make some people like, oh, a little worried, but that's okay. We can address it. Because you're already up here, it just kind of puts you over the top. It's a lot harder to like handle small things. And so you can come across as irritated or really short with people, or you're always like having to move really quick because you're always feeling like you have to get ahead of something. So,
right.
A lot of things.
So you said, how old were you when you called the hotline?
I was 36.
So, oh my gosh. So that's 36 years of your brain being wired that way.
Yeah.
And your body feeling that all the time.
And your body feeling that, like your adrenaline spikes and your body, the toll it was taking. But your brain was completely wired to live in a spiral of anxiety. What were the steps that your therapist helped you take to help you get help you to rewire those parts of you?
Yeah. There was a lot of just kind of talking out loud to have to communicate to my brain that it's safe. So even just identifying things that are like happening in my environment to communicate that, okay, all of these things are perfectly safe things so that my body can start to like come down to a place where it feels safer so it can start to identify the actual things that maybe are concerning in somebody's life.
So
I can
speaking
actually
it
trust
out
them.
loud, even if it feels obvious.
Yes.
Be like, so give me an example.
So they even have like you name your 5 senses. So even like where you're at right now, like naming, what do I see? What do I hear? Is there a taste? So sometimes like lemon drops or mints are really good to have on hand to like pop in your mouth to like focus on. What do I feel? So sometimes it's like holding something in your hand or even just like doing a tracing with your fingers to like, and just really concentrate on what you're feeling. All of those things bring you into the right in the moment. Because often anxiety is thinking ahead. You're thinking about all the things that are going to happen and you're not really living in the moment. So like to bring your whole mind and body back to like, this is where I'm present in this moment. These are the things that are safe right here with me. And often just I bringing Psalms into it. Sometimes I will
That's
do
good.
breath prayers where I'm breathing in a portion of it and breathing it out and just reminding myself that the Lord is with me. He is my refuge and my strength. Like just over and over
That's beautiful.
reminding myself and my body and my heart and my soul that he is, because he is that first comfort. We do need to keep praying. We do need to keep reading our Bible. But when there's other things that we need to bring in to like communicate with our body that we're safe.
Yeah, how did that look, with your relationship with God? Like if you went 36 years with people just being like, you're fine and just pray about it more or read your Bible or whatever, did that bleed into then your relationship with God? Is that how you saw him too? That he saw you like other people were saying? Like, did you have a moment of being able to get honest and real with God and know he didn't look at you differently?
Yes, that's a great question because for the longest time versus like cast your anxiety on him for he cares for you, I didn't like those verses. They did not make sense to me because I tried over and over. And so for me, it just felt like failure. Like I'm a Christian. I should be able to do this. I can't. Therefore, there must be something wrong with how I'm walking out my faith because I can't do this. And so, but after starting this journey of healing, recognizing that that verse and others like it are invitations, not commands. And so I see it more like Christ is coming alongside me, putting his arm around me and saying like, hey, give it to me. You do not have to carry this. So seeing him beside me and the fact that I can put it over onto him versus carrying it versus like before, and that was him coming alongside me, helping take it off of me versus before, again, it was that try. I'm trying it on my own because I can't come to him until I have this figured out. That's what I was thinking beforehand versus like, no, he's going to come alongside me in the middle of my anxiety. I don't have to get this thing figured out first before coming to him.
I think that a lot of people want and assume that anxiety will get better overnight or that it will go away once you start reading your Bible or once you go to a therapist or once you start taking medication. What has your experience been with that?
Yeah, it's very multifaceted. And not everybody who feels anxious has generalized anxiety disorder or even an anxiety disorder. It could be things in their life that are causing those feelings of anxiety. So I think it's very important to like get to the root of it. And it might be the fact that like it is a disorder. Okay, well then we maybe need to see if medication can help. We can see if counseling can help. But then also we need to, I think first and foremost, look at our heart and see where our heart is at. Is there anything unconfessed sin in our life that we need to bring to the Father? Like, because I feel like something like that can cause anxiety. If we've gone through it and we're like, there's still nothing like that. Okay, is there something in my family? Is there some unresolved relationship that I still need to address?
Like unforgiveness.
Yes. Like some of those kind of things we need to look at like all of these different facets.
Yeah.
And even if we feel like that we have addressed all those things, it still is something, and that's why like my ministry is the intentional life. Like you need to be intentional with these things. You don't go to the gym once and you're like, hey, I'm totally in shape for the rest of my life. Like you can't just be like, okay, I'm going to address this anxiety now and I'm good. Like
Yeah.
every day an intentional thing of like, what am I doing in my life to set myself up for mental wellness? And it's,
Mm.
again, it's like looking at all these different facets of life. It's not just a one part thing.
That's lovely. Yeah.
I love that you say that about going to the gym because I feel like God gave me this, I guess, visual, if you will, of a spiritual truth that I just keep mulling over in my brain. And it is this, it is that especially if you're a mom, you understand that your house gets messy, not just once a day, multiple times a day. And it's like, I do all the dishes I can spend 2 hours in the kitchen and the very next hour I go in and cabinets are open and dishes are in the sink. And yes, it's frustrating sometimes. Yes, it gets old, but we expect it, right? We go back in, we have to clean the kitchen again. Same with laundry, same with picking up the house. All these things,
Yeah.
even just taking care of our physical bodies. My hair is only clean for a day. I'm so jealous of people that have clean hair for a week. I wish I was one of those. I have tried, and it's just not me. And so I have to shower every day. And I don't get mad about it. Is it inconvenient sometimes? Yeah. But I don't get mad about it. And so to relate that, I just keep thinking about all these things in our life that we do over and over and over. Yet when it comes to like our mental and emotional health, I feel like as a general rule of thumb, people get really impatient with it and they get really hard on themselves about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like we're not hard on ourselves that we have to shower every day to have clean hair, but yet we're hard on ourselves that we might wake up the next day, even though we attacked anxiety the day before with God. And then the next day it comes back up and we're like, and we feel like a failure, right? And so, yeah, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that. Like, it's like we have all these things in the physical world that we don't necessarily fight. Yet when it comes to these internal things, we're like,
Yeah. Like
ugh.
I should have moved past that by now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I feel like that's the enemy's way of like shaming us because like that would be something I wasn't always at a point, then I wasn't bringing my worry to God anymore because I was like, well, I've tried this already. Like I've told you about it. You've got to be tired of it. Like I should have had this figured out. And so I think that like there's that shame that like the enemy wants to keep us from bringing it to him, but he doesn't tire of it. Like his mercies are
Yeah.
new every morning. So that means that like if every morning we come back with this thing that we're
Right.
struggling with, he wants to hear it. He wants us to bring it to
Yeah.
him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a couple good friends in my life that do deal with generalized anxiety. And so sometimes it will look like text messages that are, a few like boop, 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 boop. Oh, sorry about my spiral. Sorry. I'm okay. Like, I know it's going to be okay. And to me, it's like, of course you can share those with me. Of course I still love you. I guess my question for you is like, what is a helpful response from a friend to hear when you're sharing with your friend about your worries and anxieties?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think definitely don't say, oh, that's not that big a deal. Oh, don't worry about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Even if, like, it's like, that's even like my response too to somebody who starts to worry about something because you want to assure them that it really isn't
Like,
that big a deal.
yeah,
But
it's
in
going to be
our,
okay.
yes, but in our mind, it feels so huge. So to have it invalidated by saying
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
that big a deal. So yeah, I think it's just the listening and then even saying like, okay, it sounds like this is a big concern to you. Do you need me to do you want to call me so I can listen? Or do we need to, like, even if do I need to come over and spend some time with you? Or is there something I can take off your plate? I think there's some of those different things just to come alongside and be a partner instead of
Yeah.
trying to fix it. Because sometimes they're like, I don't even know how to necessarily fix this thing, but this is how I'm
Yeah.
feeling.
What about how can I pray for you right now? Is that helpful or unhelpful?
No, I think definitely knowing that somebody else is going to God for me at any time, even though I'm like, because like, yes, maybe you've got better words to tell him because right now, the ones I'm coming up with, like, yes, please, the more people I'm taking it to God, the better. For sure.
Yeah. We have a saying that we talk to women about how overwhelm often leads to shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's the same even with our walk with God, that sometimes when we are feeling overwhelmed with life or our emotions or our mental state, however that might look, it can feel really hard to go to God or dig into his word or, some of those small practical pieces that we're taught to stay tethered. So I'm curious for you, more that practical side, if you are feeling more than usual anxious that day or overwhelmed with life, what are some practical things that you do to maybe just stay tethered to God without feeling guilty about it?
Mhm. First and foremost, I just tell him now. I'm just like,
Yeah.
God, this is a really anxious day. And sometimes I don't
Mm,
even have the words, but just like, Jesus, be near. Just be near with
mm,
me in this.
that's powerful.
And I've had to start giving myself some boundaries. Before I would just keep pushing and just be like, it's fine, it's fine. I'm just gonna feel anxious, but we're just gonna do all these things. But instead I'd
Mhm.
like, even if I'm giving myself 5 minutes and I sit down and I'm still. And
Hmm.
for that purpose, that because my body wants to keep moving. And there's a part of me that
Yeah.
needs to work out that energy, but there's also a part where I need to stop and communicate to my body that I am safe and I need to be still with the Lord.
Mm,
And
that's
so
good.
even I just set my timer. So I'm not looking at my watch at all. And I just sit down and I'm like, Lord, I'm here, be near. And sometimes I'll play a psalm. Like the Bible app is so great because it's recorded. So I just
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
someone reading
Right.
it out loud for me.
Mm.
And psalms are just, yeah, are so great because David had so many feelings that it's so
Yes.
good to be reminded that, and he took them to the God. And I love that how some of them start out with like, God, this is awful. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and he's like,
They're
where?
killing me.
Yes. And it's and he's even questioning God, like, where are you? But then
Yes.
Mhm.
always at the end, it turns out, but you are a gracious God, but you are faithful and you are everlasting.
Mm.
And so I think it's okay to like even
Mm.
come to God being like, God, I don't feel great. I don't know why you're allowing this to happen, but always end it with the truth that he is, like, just reminding yourself of like how faithful he is and how good he is and that he is near.
Yeah. I I don't think I've heard anybody on our podcast or in recent times like bring it back to actually stopping and pausing and then like centering yourself with scripture, which
Mhm.
should be like obvious. That should be like, yeah, we should totally do that. But I love the idea of the pause to ground yourself, like we talked about earlier with actual grounding and then pairing that with
Yeah.
scripture.
With the
That's,
senses. Yeah.
yeah, with the senses. That sounds beautiful. Nichole, I wanted to ask you something that I have seen repeat itself in church leadership sometimes is the stigma of mental health.
Mm.
Like, what do you wish for the Christian church and how it deals with the stigma of mental health? Like, what would your hope be?
Yes. I think like some of the stigma comes even from like scripture that says to love your Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so we think of like, okay, our heart and our strength, and we see it like in our actions and the way that we love Jesus, but then our mind should also be aligned. And so if somebody's mind doesn't doesn't feel like it's in the right alignment with like how our actions are and how our
Mm.
heart is, that we start to kind of question like, well, maybe your Christian walk is not where it should be, when in
Mhm.
Mhm.
fact we need to like, we wouldn't, if someone has diabetes or someone has heart disease, we wouldn't be like, I don't know, you're not loving the Lord with all your body, all your heart and soul
Mm.
and mind.
Mhm.
Like we need to look at the fact that there's mental illness, it just as it is when there's a heart condition or someone has cancer, or like there's so many other things that go wrong in our bodies, and our mind is
Mhm.
part of that. Like we're outside of
Right.
Yeah.
Eden. We're in exile. We're in a fallen world. These things are going to
Yeah.
happen. And I think
Mhm.
that when we can come alongside people with their illness, whatever is going on with their mind, I think there's like that validation. And some of it can be hard because I know some mental illness can really make a person do odd things or
Mhm.
wrong
Right.
things. And so I mean think that like, and I think that's the part that kind of is hard to separate. But I think that like the validation that it is a hard thing and it is something that needs treated, like the whole mind, body, soul,
Mm.
strength, that,
Yeah.
and that we aren't discredited or put to the side. I think that there's that some of that is lost. And I think there are people that are struggling and not bringing it up because of the shame.
Yeah.
And I think that so many more people could be helped, which is why I keep talking about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of Eden, that's a part of your title, which I want to hear more about. So I'd love to hear about your book that it's already available, by the way, to our listeners on Amazon for pre-order. It'll be live on June 2nd, which will be close to when this comes out. But tell us more about what led to writing that and kind of your heart behind it.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, that title, I don't have to hold it all together. Just speaks to even my own journey. Like I was just telling you earlier, like the try hard, just try harder, try harder. And
Yeah.
even now, I fall into that trap of thinking that I'm the one that needs to hold everything together. When in fact, Colossians 1:17 tells us that he is before all things and in all things, and in him all things are held together. And that means even me and even you. And when everything feels like it's falling apart, when we feel like we're falling apart, like that's okay. That's not our job to hold it all together. Like
Yeah,
he even
that's
is
good.
working within all of
Yes.
these pieces.
That's good.
And the cultivating the piece of Eden, that part comes from, for years, I have thought about Eden and the fact that like, I love the idea of perfection and control and comfort. But those are all things that I try to do on my own. And I think a lot of people do. When we're overwhelmed or when life feels chaotic, we try to clamp down and get things under control. And we make lists and we have plans and we have all these systems and we're trying to get everything together.
Yeah.
And we find our own ways of comfort in the middle of our chaos. But those are all like our own Edens that we're trying to build on our own. But instead, we look at there's parts of the true Eden that were there from the very beginning, that even though the fall has happened and humans have been exiled, there are parts of Eden that are here still today. But because of it's outside the fall, we have to seek it and we have to be intentional in looking for those things and intentional in cultivating it. But the fact that like we can cultivate those things and look after those things, but ultimately it's God who provides all of the comfort and all of the control for us.
Yeah. It's a lot of coming back to Eden.
Yes.
And it sounds like the only way to do that is to give over control.
Yeah.
Which sounds really scary. I was listing my house for sale and I was like, I had my list of things I had to do. Man, you wouldn't believe. And at the end of it, as we were getting ready to like get offers and stuff like that, I was so anxious because I was like, what if I didn't do the right thing? Like, what if I didn't get all the things I needed to get done? What if I made a mistake? What if like the inspector finds something I didn't think of? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and I remember God speaking to my heart. He's like, if I'm going to bless you, I will do it. And at that point, I was like, it has nothing to do with me.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, and what a hard dance to learn and relationship to learn, because he does want us to do all things for him, you know, and do all things unto him. Like, do the work, do get out there, do get your lists and get things done, but to actually hand over the end result. Like, this is not because I worked really hard, even though I did, you know what I mean? It's like, how do we attribute the glory to him and take it off of ourselves?
Yeah, it's like releasing the outcome. I think that control, so much of control is because we see how we want something to turn out. And so we try to finagle and manage and control everything so that it can get to that end point. But instead of like looking at our to-do list and be like, okay, Lord, what are the things that are actually on my plate? What are the things I should do? What are some other things that actually is somebody else's, but I've taken it because it looks like something that I could control.
Right.
And do the things on our to-do list and then trusting God for the outcome and for the increase and the provision even in the midst of it.
I love that you mentioned the outcome, because it's like when with anything that we're doing, we're aiming for an outcome. But God is asking us to not really aim for an outcome, like, or to be okay with any outcome, right? It's like, I will do this, but even if, God, like, even if, I will still bless you. I will still praise you. So,
yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm curious for your book, you know, obviously you guys just go buy it yourself and I'm sure there's so much goodness. Could you just provide a general kind of outline, or, what are some of the main points that you're helping readers to understand through your book?
Yes. Yeah. So the overarching is the fact that we're trying to build our own Eden with comfort and
Yeah.
control. And instead
Mhm.
looking to the aspects of Eden that are still here, these attributes. And so I
Mhm.
walk through 7 different attributes of Eden that are present here today. And so we explore in each chapter, we just kind of dig in deeper about that attribute and how we can be intentional in cultivating that specific attribute in our lives.
I love that.
I love that idea. Can you share one or two of the attributes just as
Yeah.
a sneak peek?
Yeah. The first and foremost, we have to have communion with God. And that's not
Mhm.
just like acknowledging him a few times a day, but it's actually communion is a deep relationship. So it's someone who is there with you at all times. Like
That's good.
it's a relationship and not a religion. And so acknowledging that we have the Spirit with us at all times. And so you're talking to him throughout the day. If you see something that delights you, you tell him. If you're in the middle of something that feels anxious, you tell him, just like you would a friend. Going to him first before anyone else.
Hmm.
So first and foremost, that communion with God, just thinking about like in the garden, how Adam and Eve like walked with
Right.
him and they
Mhm.
had his presence at all time. And then
Yeah.
another one is just looking at outdoors and outside and how many things in creation have been designed to support us as humans and
Mhm.
just our mental wellness as well. And then just as we are part of creation and how we support creation too, and how,
Yeah.
again, cultivating those things can actually
Mm,
enhance and improve our mental health.
Mm. That's,
I
I
love
love
that.
that.
It does it go back to what you were saying earlier when you do the pause thing and you ask God to like, what did you say? You said, be with me or
Just be near.
be near.
Yeah.
Is that what the communion looks like?
Yes. And it just, there's a part of us like that we just keep going about our day and thinking he's over there somewhere. But the fact that
Yeah.
he is actually here
Mm,
with us at all times. I think that when our mind starts fully grasping that, it changes how we
yeah.
interact with people. It changes how we think. It changes so much of everything.
It does feel like we're kind of short-term memory loss monkeys sometimes. Because it's like we sometimes say like, if I only knew God was with me, it might change the whole way I live my life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But all it takes is just like a little bit of time to like actually remember that he's with us.
Yes.
And then we look at the Israelites in the Bible and we're like, come on, guys, for real?
I know. I'm an Israelite so often. Yes, I forget
Aren't we
and
all?
have to be reminded. And
Yes.
Mhm.
If there's anybody here listening right now, well, first of all, they should definitely check out your book, buy it, get it, and read it because this sounds awesome. I know that I already have in mind, I'm going to text my friend and share this podcast with her after it
Mhm.
goes live because I know that she will love this conversation. But what would you say are the first steps for people if they're thinking to themselves, oh, this sounds like me? Like maybe I either have generalized anxiety or maybe acute anxiety based on circumstances. Like, what are the
Yeah.
first steps for people to go and get help?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, starting with just your doctor, um, I can't promise that they're going to listen. I feel like sadly they don't always acknowledge, but I think at least starting there, that if anything they can run some diagnostic, like there's generally questionnaires or something they can ask that kind of pinpoint things a little better. I feel like doctors are getting better with that. There's more
Yeah.
and more
Yeah.
of those kind of things that they're asking, so they can at least give you an idea of where you're at and if it feels like you need to have some kind of intervention medically.
Mhm.
Looking for a Christian counselor, ju- even if it's you go and talk to them once a month or you just have 3 sessions with them to even they've just been trained in ways to be able to help you think through things differently or have a different perspective. And I say Christian because it needs to be based in Christ.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
we can take a secular view on this, but we are only going to get so far if we don't bring Jesus into the middle of it.
Mhm.
And I think having somebody you can trust that will validate you, will not say, oh, it's not that big a deal, don't worry about it, that you can just tell them what you're struggling with. And even if you
Mhm.
aren't taking the step to go to a doctor or a counselor, but having someone who will listen to you, who's willing to pray for you and is keeping an eye on you, that of like, if you start to like, okay, you know what? This seems to be elevating a little bit more than just some of this general concern. Like being able to have someone who can keep you accountable and maybe even be that nudge to be like, okay, we maybe need to go a little further and find somebody professional.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are great first steps because, again, with the overwhelm with shutdown, one thing as you were talking is like, obviously, with most things, it's multifaceted. And then there's also multifaceted ways to help something. So
Mm,
even when you were talking about nature, right? Like if somebody can't afford a counselor or that's too much right now, it's like there's so many studies just about how walking
Mm-hmm.
outside in the elements and, you know, gazing your horizon, like there's like literal things that God wired our bodies for
mhm.
to benefit from something like that, you know?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think of that. I even think of like diet, you know,
Mm-hmm.
of like maybe avoiding certain things if you are feeling that way. I'm not a huge stickler on diet, but I do know that there are some people that are just more sensitive to certain
Yeah.
things or actually feel a lot better if they're eating a certain way
Yeah.
too. So I feel like there's a lot of ways to approach it. And then I love though that you keep pulling it back. Like we're not saying forget Jesus and just do these things. Like it's like no, Jesus is the center
Mhm.
and we are inviting him to walk alongside us as you have said
Mm-hmm.
in these ways and asking him like lead me to a good doctor, help lead me, put the right people in my life who are going to listen, put people in my life who are going to pray for me. If this is a diet thing, lead me to that. Help
Yes.
show that, reveal that to me,
Mhm.
right? Because left to our own devices, we could just be spinning our wheels,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. And I would add to that when you're saying diet, it also made me think about our electronic diet and how important it is to
Yeah.
actually be aware of how much
Yep.
the screen actually
Yes.
causes some anxiety. That if you would take a fast from it for even like 3 days and just
Mhm.
make a note of even 24 hours, make a note
Woo,
of how your mind
that's
feels
good.
and even how your body feels being removed from all the reminders of the things that you're falling
Mhm.
behind and someone's doing it better and even just the news of all the awful things. Like there's so much stuff that our mind is trying to decipher that causes us
Mhm.
to feel anxious.
Yeah. I wanted to add too, I think that it's a trap to say, I can't afford therapy. Where are you located, Nicole? I'm not sure if we said.
Yeah, I'm in Indiana.
Okay, Indiana. I know in Kansas City there's Peace Partnership, which is a sliding scale therapist program where you can go in and you can get therapy depending on your income and your family size. For they have some people that go in for free, some people that pay $25 a session or $50 a session. There's also Abundant Life here in Kansas City where people can go and get very low cost therapy or go to someone that's not licensed yet that you can often get that will help them to get their hours. And I
Yeah.
just think
A lot of
it just
options.
takes a little bit of research. One time I even figured this out by calling a place that was a Christian center and them telling me about it and they were full. And I was like, okay, well, what do you recommend? And they were like, well, this place offers really great low cost. And so sometimes you have to call and inquire to different places to figure out what are the places in your area that will provide these services for you if it is outside of your
Yeah.
price range. And I think this is a really great way to help support the people in our lives that do struggle with anxiety because we go out and we live our days in church where you pray for people and you're like, oh, they're really struggling with something. Or, oh, this feels too big for me to handle on my own with just prayer. I think they need help. I think a really great way for you to love them is to have like on your mind or in a text message, like, hey, I know this really great place. Let me send you the link to it really quick. Or they offer really low cost therapy where you can get in and see someone quickly. So did you want to share any of those that you know about either in Indiana or online places that you've heard of maybe?
Well, I do want to at least share the suicide hotline, which is national, is 988.
Yeah.
Yes, that's lovely.
998. Yeah. So
Yeah. 988.
definitely, thank you. So definitely just having that. It's actually based here around where I live in Fort Wayne, is called Remedy Live, but they have a text hotline where they will text with you. And it wasn't necessarily counseling, but it they call them soul medics. And so they will talk anyone who's struggling like with their mental health.
Mhm.
They will check in with them, and they actually will like kind of start a relationship with them if the person who's texting in wants to. So I can give you that information. We could put that in the show
Mm.
notes.
That's
Yeah.
good.
And
Yeah.
there's a great Christian counseling organization around here called Story House that they continue to grow and get more and more therapists because they are doing such good work.
Yeah, that's good. I know we've talked about some different verses and different facets, with the Psalms being something that you feel really drawn to because of the honesty of David and being able to go to God when we feel mad or confused or upset or whatever. We've said a few verses that maybe aren't always super helpful, even though they are still true. I like how you phrased that. You said they're, how did you put it? Not commands, but
Invitations.
invitations, not
Mm.
commands. Yeah, I like how you phrase that. Are there any verses that you circle back to a lot that you feel are really validating or centering?
Yeah, the one I do quite often is what I said earlier was Colossians 1:17. And mostly it's just to remind myself that he is in all things and he's holding it all together. So even sometimes when I'm so anxious, I can't really form out a whole prayer, but I'm just saying like,
Yeah.
Lord, hold us together. Sometimes it's like, Lord, hold me together. And if it's like a situation, it's like, Lord, hold this together. And when I'm doing that,
Mhm.
it's, there's a part of me that's just kind of like dumping it. Like, okay, Lord, please hold this together.
Yeah.
I'm tired of doing it. And he's like, good, because I never asked you to do it in the first place. So it's again, me just kind of giving it back to him.
That's really good. I had a thought. How does this affect your closest relationships in your marriage? Is this something
Yes.
that your husband has had to walk through with you and like to support you and learn how to support you well?
Yes. So oddly enough, we have been together since I was 15.
Oh,
So
amazing.
yeah, we were high school sweethearts. And so people would be like, how did he not know? And I said, well, that just speaks to how good I was at shoving it down deep. Like he always knew that I was like, I'm kind of controlling and I'm a perfectionist and like, but those things he just saw as like, well, that's just part of her. And we've kind of grown together.
Mm.
Had to learn how to be a wife to a husband when I'm kind of controlling and want to be a perfectionist. And I've had to release some things. But he had no idea at the depth of the anxiety I was holding on to. So when I got diagnosed and I had to go to him and tell him, like, this is what's going on. Like, there was actually a little bit of like, we had to walk through a little bit of him because it was almost breaking trust a little bit. The fact that like, how could you not tell me all this?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we just had to kind of build that back up. And the fact that like every time now, if I'm feeling anxious, I tell him. And so
Wow.
his eyes have been open to like how deep this has gone and how many things actually cause me to be anxious. And he's learned the right language of what to say and what not to say.
Mm.
Wow.
And that sharing probably creates intimacy, whereas before, were you lacking intimacy when you weren't sharing parts of yourself with him?
I probably was, but it was just so much of like normal life. I didn't know anything otherwise,
Yeah. Right.
but
Mhm.
having it now and when I can share with him how I'm actually feeling and he comes alongside me, it's so much deeper than what it was before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a sensitive question that we could take out if you want, and also a trigger warning to our listeners about suicide. When you got to the point of calling the suicide hotline, had your husband still not known the depths of where you were?
He did not.
Mm.
Yeah. I was in the laundry room clutching a towel and sobbing into it. And that was what I had a friend. I actually I was in a Bible study group. So it was enough of like with a safe space for like for other women where I just had enough times with like kind of the words I said. And she was aware of what anxiety and depression looks like from her own life, that she was the one that was like, I think you need to call this. And she gave me the number. And so I had that in the back of my brain. I didn't do it right away, but it was about 2 weeks later when I'm in the laundry room sobbing. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know why I feel this way. My husband loves me. My children are healthy. I love my job. My life is good, but I just don't want to do it anymore. And that
Wow.
scared me because it didn't make any sense. And so the next day I called the hotline. And that's kind of what triggered it for me.
And then did you tell your husband after you called?
I
How long
called
did that
it
take?
was so I called the hotline and they told like I said earlier, they said you need to make an appointment with your doctor. They gave
Mm.
me a list of like counselors to start looking into. And it was after I saw the doctor and I had the diagnosis that I sat down
Wow.
and had a conversation with him. Yeah. So it
Mhm.
I mean, I totally get how
Mm.
it threw him for a total loop. And it kind of
Sure.
takes you
Yeah.
back a little bit, like how is all this going on and I don't know.
But take
Yeah.
me into what you were feeling when you had to sit him down to tell him what was going on.
I was a little scared, and just the fact that I didn't know how he was going to take it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And how it went was good. Like the fact
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like I said, he was hurt, but it was never like it didn't
Mhm.
fracture our relationship.
Mhm.
It
Did it feel
just,
shameful, like to have to
no, it
share
didn't
that you
feel
were carrying that?
shameful. I think
That's good.
that it was just another step of that relief that I was like,
Mhm.
okay, here's
Mm.
another person who knows that wanted to, like this whole time, wanted to do it, carry it with me. He wanted to walk with
Right.
me. I just wasn't
Mhm.
allowing anybody to do it because for so long I just
Wow.
thought like it was the shame. Shame keeps us hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
as you're talking too, I mean, yeah, shame keeps us hiding, but also like that's where the enemy does his best work
Yes.
is
Mhm.
In
when
the dark.
not just shame, but yeah, quiet in the quiet. And for you to keep that even close to your chest, even to your own husband, just shows like how the enemy can get to us and tell us, like, don't talk about that. That's not safe to talk about. That it's going to be worse if you talk about it. Whereas, like, even though our brains might be telling us that, like, that how much freedom is in bringing it to light.
Yes. I think that's why I had said earlier, like finding someone to keep you accountable. Because even if
Mm.
sometimes if all this stuff is living in our heads,
Yeah.
we believe it. We believe everything
Yeah.
that we
Mhm.
think. But when we
Right.
start saying it out loud, I say like that's bringing it from the darkness into the light when we bring it,
Yeah.
when
For
we say it
sure.
out loud. And so
Yes.
even
Mhm.
just to say something out loud helps us, but to have someone else hear it and to come
Mm.
alongside us and like take the thoughts that we've just now voiced out loud and kind of parse through it and like, yeah,
Yeah.
it removes it from the enemy's grasp.
That's good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. In general, maybe outside of what we've been talking about, anxiety and mental health and everything, is there anything just in your quiet times with the Lord that he's been talking to you about lately?
Just through like this book launch time, like the 8 weeks leading up to it, it is very overwhelming. So it's
I
very
bet.
ironic that I'm
Yeah.
releasing a book about overwhelm, and this whole thing feels very overwhelming.
Yes.
Because not only during this time I'm not only doing this book release, but I have our second child is graduating from high school, and she's
Oh my goodness.
yes, and she's
Yes.
moving out in just a couple months. So I have
Oh.
that also
No.
going on too. Yes. And so it's just been another season of me having to live out what I just wrote. And the fact
Oh,
that everything is being held with open hands. And
yeah.
I'm
Mm.
doing what God has asked me to do. And then I'm asking him for the outcome and the provision. And I'm also deciding like what things have I picked up that are not mine to do and that I'm allowing someone else
Mm.
to take over and then trusting God to provide for them and for that outcome.
Yeah. Don't you hate that? It's like even the things that we feel like, oh, God's been teaching me a lot about this, and I feel like it's part of my call to teach others.
Mhm.
And then it's like, oh, we still have to live it out too.
Yes. I feel like when we do in ministry, how we're like you guys, even what you're
Mhm.
doing here and what I'm writing
Yeah.
about, like whatever God has called us to write or speak about,
Mhm.
it was something that we've already struggled with or walked through. But I also feel like it's just because we're a little further down the journey than other people. Like we haven't like finished it and
Yeah.
we've stepped off and now
Right.
we're telling everybody how to go. We're mostly like we're
Exactly.
still on that journey. We're like, come along. I've walked that part. keep coming along so I could teach you what I've learned so far. Yes.
And sometimes it's like those opportunities of hardness is what helps it to drop from the head to the heart.
Yes.
Because like
Definitely.
we talk about stuff all the time on here, but it's when we come across those trials when we're like, "Oh, yeah,
real
this is
life.
what
Huh?
we've been talking about. This
Mhm.
is, I know this here. Now let me apply it.
Apply it. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Nichole, and to our listeners, we're going to have in the show notes Nichole's website. Her book is on Amazon. You can pre-order it, and it'll start shipping out June 2nd, I believe.
Yep.
And is there anything else you want to say to our listeners as far as getting in touch with you or how or why they might reach out to you?
Yeah. So not only on my website, but if they order before June 2nd, I do have pre-order bonuses that
Oh,
are
okay.
available. So
Cool.
if you go to my website and they'll see a link to the book, but also a link to pre-order bonuses as well. And then I also am on Substack and on
Hmm.
Instagram. I have like a weekly devotion that I send out on Substack that focuses on an intentional thought, an intentional prayer, and then an intentional moment. Just each week, kind of like
I like
a
that.
couple minutes to just pause and recenter on God's word and what He's asked us, how He's asked us
Yeah.
to walk it out. And then on
Yeah.
Instagram too, just a few times a week, something encouraging, something about mental wellness on there as well.
Love that. Well, lots of things we talked about today, but is there anything that you would just kind of want to summarize our thoughts today or leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I know I've said it a few different times, but just
Mm.
reminding you that it is not your job to hold it all together and that you
That's so good.
can live with open hands and trust Him to be the one to hold everything together, even you.
I
That's
love
good.
that. That's really powerful. Really powerful. Well, Nichole, thank you so much for being here. I love this
Yes.
conversation, learned so much. I'm sure our listeners learned so much too. To our listeners, we'd love to hear from you. We are real people. If you reach out to us on Instagram, there's no team. We are the team. We'd love to hear any takeaways from today's episode, or if you might be struggling with certain things too. Not that we have the answers, but we'd love to pray for you. So please reach out. And yes, so thank you, Nichole, for joining us today. And thank you to our listeners for listening. Join us again next week for another inspiring story. Thanks for listening in today, and we hope that you enjoyed today's episode.
Just remember, your story matters, and God is using it to create echoes way beyond what you can see.
If this episode encouraged you, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, keep trusting God, leaning into His purpose, and allow your life to echo His love.